Hello, welcome to Ask the Accountant. We have cool friends here from the Brewdog in London, and we're here to talk to probably one of our longest serving friends. Definitely a cool friend. That's right. But when you think back to one of those very first,
you would have done less time for murder.
Just think of the CPD.
Yeah, exactly. So, Kirsty, for anyone out there who doesn't know you, tell the world who you are, why you're here, and what we're going to talk about today, which is you.
Kirsty StJohn from Kirsty's Accounting Services, Limited in March, Cambridgeshire, which is a small village near Peterborough, Ely, those sort of places you'd have heard of. Just me, hoping my sister's going to join me, and generally look after limited companies. But yeah, I'm really pleased to be invited. Thanks for, I think cool friend I'm so happy about, or you could call me a stalker.
And you've missed one very important part there. You're a multi-award winner.
Well, these days, yes, as of last night. Very happy to add my awards. Finally got the small practice. It's really hard it's fourth time last night, but losing to your friends.
Yeah.
I mean, you're pleased that they've won, but equally you're practicing your Oscar face for, but it is really hard to find the energy and the courage to put yourself forward. But looking back on previous applications, that when I sort of did it the second time, I looked at my first one, I was like, okay, well, I can see why that one didn't win. And we've been a bit lacking in feedback, which we have fed back to ICB. But yeah, so finally to get it, I'm like so happy. And then the champion one was just amazing.
Ice on the cake, yeah. And a big cheer. There was a big cheer in the room for it, wasn't there? I think we had a previous guest in today for some other cool friends. And one thing kind of dawned on us, wasn't it, was these award ceremonies are reflections of your year there. You're almost our form of appraisal, because we don't get to appraisals anymore,
exactly.
Right? Appraisals were such an important part of your development of when you were going through corporate world and everything else. So is that how you feel like it?
Yeah, having been in business, so on my been licensed 15 years now, and you're right, there's no one else to judge how I'm doing apart from checking yourself against yesterday, against last year. So actually taking that time out I keep track of my time on Harvest and a gauger, but generally on Harvest because I did it from the beginning, and look back on how many worked hours and check your income and that sort of thing. But to actually kind of think, wow, I've managed to get more money with less hours. This is good. Let's do more of this. And how can I do more? How can I get myself out of the business? I mean, people keep talking about exit plans. I, never even considered it until sort of, you hear about Joe and Bev and you think, oh, gosh, never really thought about leaving. I mean, I'm 55, but I can't imagine doing anything else. And the kind of job that we do is so flexible that you don't have to give it up. You can just drop your hours to suit or pick and choose. I don't want to do that. That's a dodgy client. Or that's a field. Pubs, talk to Tim now. Got someone to pass it on to you. You can pick and choose. But taking time out to kind of reflect and set up a little KPI group with Penny Allard and Susanna Whelan and our little AWA hot babes, we like to call ourselves. Sherry thinks that's very cool. But we sort of kept a Google sheet tracking our KPIs. Remind each other to do our social stats every month.
Yeah.
And we share our KPIs amongst us. So I'm a limited company, but just me. Fiona does a bit for me, and I've got a subcontractor for the bits I can't do. Penny has a team, and Susanna's on her own and uses someone else for the limited company bits. So we have three very different scenarios, and it's really interesting to compare the sort of the turnover, the number of clients, the work involved. And we see the struggle Penny has with teams and stuff, and but we can talk through scenarios and boost each other for, that's a difficult conversation to have with a client. I would do this. Have you considered that? And just the team morale to encourage you along, talk you through a different situation. I have it with other ICB members as well, but us three are particularly close, and that makes a massive difference and encouraging each other to put yourself forward for those awards. Susanna put herself forward for 2 this year for the first time ever, because we encouraged / bullied. It's a hard decision.
It's a very fine line. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, Penny often, bullies me into my social media, or she'd feed back later and went, you didn't have to put all 3 of those in one post, that would have covered 3 days or whatever. But for me, I'm not very, I don't feel very comfortable in the whole marketing strategy and stuff. It's not which is why I get so nervous going on stage and things like that. But I'm just me, I'm a bit Marmite, take me as I am. I'm fairly sure that people know me, but I like to think that, hence I was swizzling on my chair yesterday. Just me.
I think one thing that we really should start on here is when we see you, you kind of are the epiphany of what ICB is all about, right? It's that community driven and everything else. And has it always been like that? Like, have you guys kind of built it like that? Talk us through.
I set up my company in 2007 when my son was born. At the time, I was a Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply. I was a chartered buyer. But I went back part-time. I sort of sorted it out whilst on maternity leave. I couldn't settle into maternity leave until I'd arranged I was going back part-time, at which point I then did some studying, passed my exams whilst on maternity leave with my darling child, who's now 17 and heading to university soon. But at the beginning, so I got licensed 2009. So a few years, I think 2011 was my first one. And I was brave enough to talk to this QuickBooks queen called Sylvia Borhill. Asked her a question, and she was like, this powerhouse of a lady and so in charge and knew everyone and knew everything. And I'm like, wow, to be that confident and that, I could. And so I left it another couple of years, and then I did like 14, 15, 16, did quite a few. I had to miss 1 year. By then I was doing a weekly payroll. 200 people needed paying that day. I couldn't get out of it. So that annual summit of meeting people and coming away inspired and learning new ideas and, the whole changing from hourly pricing and the OCR's not going to, take your jobs away, make most of it, and that sort of thing, which is still the same thing with the AI coming and that sort of thing. But that community has always been there. So that 2009 summit, when it kind of first got going, I'm like, there isn't, what you're talking about these branches, there isn't one. I want one. So I talked to Ken Ball. I set up the Cambridgeshire branch in 2013.
Oh, wow.
So, I've been chair of Cambridgeshire branch, not yet award-winning. There's about maybe 20. I mean, Cambridgeshire's quite a rural area, and the way it works with ICB, they don't tell you who's in your area. They invite within a certain radius of my house, for example. I've got about 10 or 20, kind of key people that come every time. Then with the whole COVID thing, and we went online. So then when it was like, free for all, so I went to Aberdeen, Glasgow, Devon, Cornwall, we could go anywhere for any meeting, which was good because mine have always been the first Tuesday of the month in the evening because it suited me at the time. My husband was there to look after my child, our child at the time, but it's kind of fitted that way. And I've kept those meetings at that time slot because it suits me as chair. That's kind of my prerogative. But equally, I've asked them if anyone is looking like they ever want to take over the branch. I'm like, it doesn't have to stay me, but I don't think they want to. And so therefore I'm, again, sort of stuck with the job. That's fine. I love it. But equally, we encourage each other. If there's another meeting at like 10 o'clock on a Tuesday suits you better, then go to get that support and to know and get to know people, which is another reason then for the summit to be so good because you see people that you've met online. Mm. And, some people have either travel difficulties or child issues that they can't get to an in-person meeting, or we're very rural. Certainly in Cambridgeshire, some of the roads, not very nice at night, big ditches either side of them in the fens. So actually having a virtual meeting suits the majority of them anyway. So I think that's where that sense of community comes from. But it really kicked in, I think, majority in COVID when we started doing ICB TV every day. I think it was every day.
ICB TV?
Yeah. Gary and Jackie Mount, amazing, saved us through all the furlough calculations and all of the cease grants and all that sort of stuff. But just the kind of, we'd hear an announcement and your customers are on the phone straight away, or they're sending you messages like, hang on, let's just get a kind of practical worked example. And then we were able to support our clients through that. And that made a massive difference. And I think that really harness the community, with the whole power of the virtual and the Zoom and it all kind of kicked in, but we've never lost it. Some branches have gone back to virtual, but we've kept it going. So I think that's where that community comes from. And then carrying that on to the Advisory Council, which I was invited to join in, I think, 2019. And then Paula Vesey-Smith and Steve Worrell had done a great job as 10 years of chair and vice chair, and they stepped down. So there was an election and nobody else wanted the job, so I got the job. I was voted for. And so, I'm chair of that, and Sylvia is my vice chair, 2 years into my 3-year term. So we'll see how that, if I get re-elected for that one.
So the two QuickBook queens.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We've got representatives of most of them are branch chairs as it happens, but from around the sort of the country. And the point is, if a member is can talk to a person, it can come anonymously if necessary to ICB. So it kind of feeds back, because we don't like the way you're handling this, or can we fix this, or how do I do that better, or I want more information on this. And equally, if ICB want to introduce something, and they might go, how's this going to fit with the members? And we're like, well, can you kind of maybe tweak it or approach it in a different way, or, so it kind of goes both ways. So, it can feel a bit piggy in the middle sometimes, but I can deal with that.
So, speaking of communities, you're in quite a lot of communities. Whenever I see a business coach posting pictures of one of their mastermind classes or something, you generally are there. So I always look at it and go, oh, Kirsty, she's got magpie syndrome. New software, I'm signed up. That's my magpie weakness. New coaching course, you seem to be signed up. How do you make sure you're getting value out of that? Because I see so many people that sign up to one coach and take no action.
Yeah.
And then complain they've got no value for money. How do you get value for not just the amount you're obviously potentially paying for a course or a coach or a mastermind group, whatever it is you've got, but also for a return on investment of your time? And how do you take the action? Because I'm confident that you probably are taking action and stuff like that. But then I sit down and see so many people can't do it with one. Yeah. How on earth are you managing to do it? And what can we all learn from you in this case?
Okay, it's interesting. So actually in Pay for One, Jerry's Accountant Wealth Academy, we were on a retreat recently with Amy, and James Gould's were as well. That Amy organised it. There was 20 of us, 18 accountants and me and Penny, 2 bookkeepers. And it was a fascinating experience that those accountants wanted to learn from us bookkeepers. How can they charge it better? How are we doing? And we talked about transaction pricing. Penny got out a Go proposal and showed them, and they were like, "Oh, wow! It's not just a purchase order. It's an invoice with classes, with thingy, with partial exemption. Get that level of detail, because it all takes time. If it's just a quick one, then yeah, fine, you can get your software to do it without looking. But they actually were learning from us, which was fascinating. One of the best things to come out of that is the sense of community. And in as much as me, Penny and Susanna really kind of harnessed it was already a friendship, but we've really kind of pinned it down. James and Amy have kind of really up for, is it ACCA that they did their
podcast?
Their podcast. Yeah, Beans to Bing Series 2 now. But again, just kind of they value what we can bring to them as well. But obviously some of the questions in that group are like way above my very grade. I'm not qualified to do year-end tax. But I read the answers, and it might just, even if I then come across a question that I know I don't know the answer to, I'll at least know, right, okay, I know who to ask, and like if there's anything, audit Amy. Or, as I say, I've had bad experiences with pubs in the past. So as part of the ICB community now, if ever there's a pub inquiry to me, I would have said no, for never going to touch another pub. But equally now, knowing that Tim's there, that I could just pass it on. So again, that kind of trying to get the most of it from, I don't need to know everything. I just need to know someone who does. But no, Jerry's is the only one I pay for. The other ones are, some of the Facebook groups, kind of learn from them, but equally give back to them. There was one recently, and you sort of saw some answers, and I'm like, actually, I don't think that's quite right. So you'd hate someone else to read that. It's really dangerous for if other people had read that and thought that was the right answer. So I kind of feel obliged to step in and go, well, you need to check that one. It almost feels like when I look at how many, so sort of log my hours and how many are actual working hours and how much are, non-billable time. So working on me, working on my business. And it's like, yeah, maybe I do spend too much time on other webinars, but
that's up to you. There's no such thing as too much time. That's quantifiable to you and justifiable by you. But with all these webinars that you're doing, like, do you have like a system like, right, I've got a webinar, which means I need like half an hour after that webinar or maybe the next day to analyze my notes, to think about it so I can take action? And like, do you have a system or process?
No, and I'm probably not as good as should be. Certainly from I think there were some Accountex sessions that I never managed to catch up on. To try and follow up on those sorts of things, it is tricky to make the time. And, I think some of it you see a bit like the whole, you see it repeatedly and it sinks in and you think, all right, that's the third or fourth time I've, and then when that same problem occurs, you're like, right, I know I'm going to deal with that. So yeah, I'm probably not as good as I should be in answer. So, sorry. And I would be up for learning some tips on how it is really tricky. The people that said about going to Accountex and saving that day afterwards, for example, to put into place and actually follow up on those steps. But I try not to get too distracted by the softwares. Like, I didn't talk to very many of the other software people that were there yesterday. I'm happy with my tech stack and knowing that I'm not straying into the whole final tax, because that's not my bag. I use a subcontractor for that at the moment until I get my studying done. Yeah, scary. I'm not going to get Student of the Year this year, but, we'll see. I might get it for next year. I did promise, my son's doing his A-levels next year, so maybe I should promise to get it done in the same time as he finishes his, because then it won't be a stressful household, will it?
Yeah, no, not at all.
It'd be lovely.
Yeah.
Harmonious.
Yeah, can't see how that could go wrong at all.
Well, I certainly won't be helping him with his maths or his physics or his design tech, so, yeah.
So you mentioned there about your tech stack. You talked about your tech stack that you're happy with. It's got to be said, you've already mentioned the QuickBooks Queen, Sylvia, and now you've taken
like to inherit that one.
Yeah, taken the crown. But it must be tricky in your community because it is a very Xero-dominated world, isn't it? In the ICB.
I do feel like me and Amy are the only ones. Certainly in Jerry's group, we're very much at QuickBooks is available.
Yeah. How do you feel? Has it ever held you back, do you think?
No, I use Xero as well in my practice. In fact, I put my own accounts on Xero in 2012, partly because I wanted to learn it. Ken Bell was a massive, he was one of the largest license owners, not necessarily users, but at one point. But I thought it was kind of the new kid on the block, and I wanted to learn it. So I put my own accounts on it to learn it. Like, we all like to practice on ourselves, don't we? Set ourselves up as a client. How does that email look to myself? Yeah, all right, fine. So I've only done two. So QuickBooks and Xero. There's certain bits that we like on each, but I don't have the headspace to do a third or a fourth or whatever. I hear so much good stuff about Free Agent, and I'm sure for a certain market, and maybe when Fiona gets a self-assessment qualification, that might well be a good route to those. Just trying one on the QuickBooks new one, to go and play with that one. But it hasn't ever held me back, and I do like to kind of fly the QuickBooks flag within a heavily dominated Xero accountants group. Like last night, surprised that they got it 11 years in a row.
Is that what it was?
Apparently so.
Bookkeepers love Xero.
I know.
You're just wrong.
Well, it's bloody expensive, what it is.
Yeah, ain't getting more expensive.
Took on a client when it was a new client, and I sort of had a helpful account manager who helped me with one of my clients, had managed to sign up for the expenses part of Xero. Never used it, then didn't get to the email and couldn't cancel it. And somehow behind the scenes, this lovely, helpful account manager fixed it somehow. It got like $2,000 back for my client. I forgot to put that in my award application. Damn. But, I was kind of felt, all right, go on, I'll take one of your special offers then. And I put a fairly new client onto it. And it was once the 90% off ended, I'm like, damn, shouldn't have done it. But I've dropped them down to the lower level. But I've hit the bill limit, and now I'm like, I really don't like this. This isn't good, is it?
Yeah.
But from the two of them, it's like, I like that screen of that and that screen and that. But I moved house a lot as a kid. My dad was in the RAF, so up until I was 12, I'd only lived in England for 3 years. And we spent our life going, right, we want the kitchen from that house in Cyprus and the bedroom from that house in there. And, so a bit like that with the softwares, I really like that. But equally, that helps with if you get someone who comes along and you think, right, you're going to be very bill orientated, or you're going to be very cash code easy, all the way, or however if you kind of you can kind of code it the right way. So I'm still looking forward to trying out more what the Intuit Assist is. The with Otto, I think is working nice. Again, I'm top of Emma's list to try it when she's at QuickBooks ready to try it. I tried the other robot, the Synergy one, but I didn't. Maybe it needed more training, and I wasn't patient enough with it. It's not a surprise. I'm not very patient. But yeah, the other sort of tech set Zen, and I'm so pleased they won last night. That got a really big cheer in the room, didn't it? And Apron, but again, I don't use it for everybody. It's a pick and choose. They need it, they don't need it. They're fine as they are. Some people still don't need any OCR, or they're just using like the QuickBooks own one. It's like, that's fine. You're putting them on, and you're dealing with that pain route. I'll deal with it when it gets here. Different clients. I had one, she's quite a good bookkeeper actually, for herself. I love the error checker, where you could go looking for them, and I think that's when I first did their first checkup, when they came to a client. Again, that's a Xero practice that she approached me she had a QuickBooks inquiry, and she's like, talk to Kirsty. But when I first did the report, and she'd doubled her sales and she'd doubled her purchases, and it's like, well, that's easily fixed. We just need to match that with that. Where the black holes are likely to be on both softwares. I think, and that's that's partly the skill when bringing on a client. One of the first things, with the help of, Tenor expert or one of the others as well, if you want to, but you kind of know where to look, where the likely thing you'll have bound to have got that credit note not matched to that thing. And I think that's partly comes with experience as well, which is worrying because, of course, when you're training, you don't get any of the weird queries. It all matches perfectly. You don't have to go looking for £5.41 that you remember you've seen 2 days ago. And I think that's partly, my clients think it's quite funny. I definitely feel like Miss Marple or Poirot, depending on which flavour you want to be, but, and very detective. But I really like the completing a circle where, when you kind of, a bit like the good old QuickBooks bank rec screen, but that whole sense of satisfaction and completion. I think I'm very much a completer finisher from that point of view.
And that must be what you drew yourself to bookkeeping day one,
definitely.
Right?
And it used to be piles of paper in a tidy file, hand them over, electronically done these days, but very much a part of. It's obviously we all have our own little oddities.
So you are active with the community. You're there leading the way with ICB and feeding back all that stuff. What do governing bodies like the ICB or any governing body, what do you think they need to do over the next 2 years to support bookkeepers with changes that we all know are coming in, whether we're talking AI and how that could enhance what we do as bookkeepers, whether we're talking change of legislation from AML point of view, or MTD IT, as we now call it.
Lost it, sir.
Ridiculous name. What do you, as a very passionate ICB member, feel that the governing bodies need to do to support you and your fellow members through the next 2 years? I
think they were sort of very much active trying to get the dual access sorted, which I know one of you guys warned me about the limited access on the second view.
It needs to go back to discussions with HMRC.
So I talked to them yesterday, and from what I can see, the second agent can only tick certain boxes. So again, I'd like to see that myself in practice. I feel a bit more, because not being self-assessment qualified, I'm at the moment only going to be able to do the 4 and not the final one. I still want to actually kind of see it a bit more and get a feel for how it's going to work. But I think they have been trying to support us in that journey. I still think we need more support with the AML, really nice, clear guidance. It's a little bit woolly for my liking. And having been through an AML inspection as part of my advisory council application, you could call it, years ago, kind of pleased that's, but it's not a once a year thing. It's very much all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think as part of the, when we bring on the new members or new practice licence holders, we try and embed that into them. It's not you take them on and you do your AML and then you forget about it. It's all the time. You're kind of thinking, why are they just, where's that come from? That's a really unusual behaviour for you. Or if you've got more than one client, you can go, that's an unusual behaviour for a consultant to suddenly have that as an expense, or so that kind of comes with experience. Having the technical helpline there to ring makes a massive difference. That it's not ICB, you're put through to technical people that really answer the phone, not like a HMRC helpline that you're never quite sure if you get the right answer and you might ring a different day and get a different answer. They can help us with that and getting the word out to the wider industry that please, you need a regulated, certified, insured bookkeeper. Don't just, anyone on the street could call themselves a bookkeeper or an accountant, and it scares the hell out of me. And you hear about the people going to talk to Dave down the pub. I was one of the speakers on stage yesterday, and I was like, it might be Mark, and he was going, and I'm like, was his name Dave? You could feel that it was coming. But so I think they can help get the word out that for their own safety, they need to be, but then there's still a risk because even with insured and regulated people,
a lot of the ones we see in the news are actually regulated and insured and qualified.
And it still went horrifically
some
wrong.
Some of the best and most ethical bookkeepers you come across are non-certified, and aren't qualified.
Qualified by experience, and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So, as much as that message is technically right, that you probably reduce your chances of issues, there is still a hole there. Yeah,
I agree. But how are we going to plug that? It needs regular checking, doesn't it? Because it's not just I need to check your AML. It's almost like spot check on your bookkeeping, or It was one of the things I was first scared about when, scared is not quite the right word, but I lost that payroll client. I was doing a weekly payroll for 4 years. It's a long time. And I was doing monthly and weekly. And it was quite a commitment for them to trust me without a backup in my firm to do it. You know, they were a huge firm, and it was a kind of a company risk. They decided to go with a bureau, which totally made sense. But from my point of view, it probably got a bit big for one client to be, which, as we know, is a risk. So I kind of had the summer off with a young child, and sort of come September time, invoices, and I'm like, oh, I could do with a bit more work. Contacted Sylvia, started doing some subcontract work. But I was really scared for the first few months, thinking, oh, is my work really as good as I think it is? And when it came back with, no problems, I'm like, oh, good. You know, it's just that reaffirming, we need it. And so actually some spot checks, like doing the annual certification or watching a video, you know, to actually have some kind of checks in place, I don't know whether spot checks or an annual check or whatever, I think would be reassuring to everybody, really.
Some of the feedback I hear from any bookkeeper accountant, regardless of governing body or HMRC, is they keep using the term police AML, whereas actually we need education, not policing and discipline.
Yeah.
Yes, there should be policing and discipline, and inspection should happen. But if I've never had an inspection before, should my first inspection, if it finds any holes, should that not be an education and training opportunity? Like, if you get done for speeding, if you've never been done for speeding before, you go to training, speed awareness training, right?
Yes, it's only when you repeat ones that that it ramps up.
If they then follow up with another inspection a year later or something, and they go, no, this is a repeat offender now, or you were clearly told about these bits and you've fallen, they've come by the wayside or something in the last year, then yes, police and discipline them there. But everyone's got the fear of God in them.
They have.
For AML.
And they're scared to ask a question. That's worrying.
That's where people, so I use Lucy Brown.
Yeah, Calathea, yeah.
Because I know I can ask her anything about AML and she's not got anyone to report me to.
Well, this is the trouble. I think when the professional body is the same as the person that, you know, I do think we would all benefit from there being a separation with, this is your body that support you and train you and ask questions of, and here's your separate police department for it. You know, I think we'd all benefit from that, to be then much more open. Lots of people are scared about coming forward, I think, for being a new chair or coming onto advisory because they're worried that they're going to have a check, and they are worried. I'm sure my records are fine, but if they turned up tomorrow, I'd be like, oh, did I tidy that up after last week's chaos because I was out of the office 4 days, you know? It is a risk and it's always a worry. I don't know how to get that better.
But is that feedback going back to the governing body that we need educating, not policing and disciplining? Yeah,
very much. And that's coming from members to us in all sorts of directions. Yeah, it's very much being fed back that we need the support and the education and the being able to ask a question without fear of retribution, whether it can be an anonymous question. But then I have a responsibility. If they've asked me a question that they really should know the answer to, then it puts me in a difficult position. So it is tricky.
Yeah.
I don't know quite how best to solve it unless my governing body is not my prosecutor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you almost need a separate independent AML police thing.
Yeah.
Policing thing. And your governing body becomes almost your union that helps represent you.
Me, exactly. As in, I've told them this, therefore you can't tell them off if I've told them this because that was what we all believed it to be. I interpreted it this way. There was a recent debate with the whole TCSP thing with, you know, if you read it one way, it's this. If you read it, what's a correspondence address? It's like, you know, it could do with clarifying, quite frankly.
Yeah. Follow the guidelines. That's the
it's really
clarification
helpful,
that you always get, isn't it?
Oh, it's a risk-based approach. Well, what if my risk says it's not a risk and your risk says it is a risk? You know, we're all stuffed, aren't we? So as bookkeepers, we like rules. We can follow rules and everyone's clear. We like it to balance. Yeah, exactly.
We just want, this is wrong, this is right. Or this is how, as a governing body, we interpret the rules.
Yes.
As long as you do this or more, you will be fine.
Yeah. Exactly. And if you need to be doing something different because something's changed, we will let you know.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
100%. So getting feedback for the ICB is what you do as part of your role.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you find, because one thing we've been kind of debating quite a bit in these past couple of podcasts we've been doing is this whole, what's the role of the institutes at the moment? How can they do better? There's definitely an opportunity there but I think a lot of the time we're talking about it as a small practice.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest problems that the institutes have is they're not just looking after small practices. They're looking after members in practice. They're looking after members who are in industry. They're looking at members who just work, right? Like, it's a whole array.
They have a real different set of requirements, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And because I feel like ICB's doing better than the majority of them, to be completely honest. Probably not perfect by the feedback we've had, but that's, at least it's better than the rest of them out there. My particular institute don't really prioritise those small practices at all. Like, we're bottom.
I think it also needs to be determined what counts as small. Are you counting as small as in, like, I'm a sole practitioner with a staff member? Am I a small practice because I've got X clients, I've got 30, or am I X number of turnover, or is it X number of turnover per client? How do you want to judge it? But it needs to be clear.
Yeah.
The government's small firm up to, 5 million, 10 million, whatever it is, it's like, that's not really practical, is it?
Yeah. But I think in our world, it's anyone with one or two partners, isn't it? Like, or below, that's a small one.
But shouldn't that just be, again, when you're judging, if someone is, like we were saying with the, trying to explain it to family at the weekend about having 5 part-time staff versus 1 full-time and whole the national insurance change and that sort of thing. But could we not judge a small practice on if they've got 5 part-timers, that's equivalent to 2.5 full-time versus that person that's got 2 full-time? Is that not a fairer judge? Or, hours worked, or I don't know, another way of doing it. I just think there's possibly a fairer way of judging these things. But I think ICB does do a good job of supporting members, but you're right, there's a mixed bag of people to support.
So how do you support them all? It's really difficult, right?
Yeah, and it almost feels like maybe each kind of section, each department needs to, like, what do they need more of? Maybe we, like a survey to everybody. What do you need more from your institute to actually get that feedback directly from them?
Yeah.
We talk regularly about there being 15,000 members. I think you're saying Amy, so she can correct me. I think it's 3,500 practices. But that number hasn't changed it's always been 3,500 members because people come and go, people retire and new people come in. But I think it's nice to see that there was loads of first-timers there yesterday.
Oh, really? That's good to see. Good.
Partly through encouraging them on the various groups. Yeah. Come, please meet us. Some of us will be wearing our badges. So Helen Bauer was scooping a few up, going, come find me. Trying to be basically friendly and welcoming because we all need the new blood into them, but equally want to encourage them from an early stage to be able to reach out to, I don't know how to do this, or equally not be scared of taking on, this is a new client or a new area for me and I'm not comfortable dealing with it. Can anyone help? Well, that's a lot of what goes on in the various Facebook groups, isn't it? It's like, I've not come across this before.
Yeah. And
not be afraid to reach out for help. I think that's rather than struggle along on your own, which I think a lot of us were doing in the past. I think since the whole, COVID virtual world, the whole social media type stuff all kicking off, and basically the answer's in your pocket, not just you, but, either however many thousand people you happen to know via social media can, along the lines, you'll get maybe 5 or 6 people giving you the same sort of answer. You're like, okay, all right, okay, I'm always on the right guidelines, or you get a mixed bag, then you maybe need to go somewhere else for your advice. But if you sometimes just actually writing out the question, I find in the WhatsApp group, as by the time you've got to the end, you're like, I'm 99% sure I'm right. And when when you get the ticks, so you don't even need an answer. You just, that's what I'd do. Or,
happy day.
Yeah.
It's really reassuring, I think.
And, it's a lonely place and you need that reassurance.
It is.
Right?
Working home, like my sister was laughing at me, I didn't leave the house for a week. We used to joke in COVID about the bins going out more than we do. It's still the case. Yeah. I have to remember to go and get mine back in.
I deliberately don't have stuff in the house for my lunch because it means, as does a 2-minute walk around the corner, but it means I'm getting out of the house at least once a day just to go to Asda to get my lunch.
That's a good idea. I did promise that I would start. I miss having a dog. I had a lovely Labrador. Black Labradors are the best. 16 years. And then we had a year off and then we had a stupid, lovely ex-husband, crazy idea to get a Cocker Spaniel because it was small, fit in the car and everything else. But no, don't want to get another Cocker Spaniel. I want another black lab. So if anyone's got black labs, send them my way. But I do miss the kind of, even if it's just around the block at the end of the day, just a break.
Clear your head.
My favourite part of the day.
I mean, I do. My office is in what was the spare bedroom, now fully kitted out as an office, but and it's always there. And when Toby was younger, I didn't used to be able to go back to work because he was, bedtime. So I equally had to stop work because my office is next to his bedroom. As he's now 17, he's up way later than me, and I often can go back to work after tea, and you kind of think, it's just that little bit I could do. And some of it is just easy clicking, just needs doing. It's either me or a machine has to do it, so somebody's got to do it. But some of it you can do while you're watching, a bit of telly or listening to a podcast. Exactly, yeah. Well, I try not to. My laptop stays upstairs. So at least I've got the commute to my kettle downstairs. Yeah, or sometimes I barely reach 2,000 steps if I'm lucky. 1,000 steps.
Yeah.
At least you have to go out to your office.
Many a day between 2,000 and 2,500 if I'm lucky.
I've got some house down the garden, but psychologically, I've had other clients with offices in the garden, but there's not a toilet down there. It's not a kitchen, so we have to be. It was like, and it's originally intended to be like a fun sort of party summer house, but it's no good when you have to keep checking back up the house for fresh pims. It's just kind of loses the enthusiasm a little bit.
No, I get that.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you for joining us and continuing to champion the bookkeeper's cause and for feeding back to governing bodies, because they need to hear it.
And to software providers as well. I think, to kind of, I like really working. I've sort of worked with Gareth a few times to make sure that QuickBooks, because I think he did a lot with Xero to start with Lara. So it's like, hey, can we have this one? I want this to work. And working with Apron, it's like there's a particular field I need to show you. I'll send you the videos I've done. Like if you can do this on there, then that report works better. We're all happy then. I think making our lives better, I think is another thing I like to spend my time if I can.
From people on the front line, that's the point, right? You're doing it.
But then when you see a little improvement or a report can say, that's mine.
Yeah. So, Kirsty, is there anything you want to plug? Do you want to tell where people can find you? Just go for it.
Wow. So, kirstyscounting.com. You'll find me pretty much everywhere. Been trying to keep up with the socials. It's all a bit of a whirlwind from last night. But yeah, hoping to kind of take on more when Fiona's ready with herself. She has got a proper job, you see, my darling sister. So the idea is that would slow down and she'd come in and she'd be ready for our self-assessment department. Yeah. And I promise I will do my level 4. But equally, I don't need to, because there's other people that can do it for me. And part of me thinks it's better to have a second pair of eyes on it. I don't know about you guys, but you can, if you're reviewing your own work, it doesn't feel like it's the right thing to do. So I'm in debate about that, but I still think I ought to finish the blooming exam. Small limited companies, I think, is what I tend to go for. One of them, he wrote me a lovely testimonial, which obviously helped get my award. But there's about £20 million, and they use Sahara to feed in. But it has its own issues. It has its, but generally, sort of small limited companies where they leave me to do it all. It's just the best place.
Love that.
Brilliant.
So you were a very popular top trump winner as well.
So happy I made a shiny.
So many people wanted your card, and hopefully you got them signed for people and go from there. So very popular in the community. It was very, very humbling to see people coming up and asking for the Kirsty card.
Oh, bless.
So going through from there. So, and a double award winner, obviously, as well. So congratulations.
Sorry.
Very, very well done.
No, very happy about that.
Yeah.
It's it's nice after trying for so hard and hopefully going to get some feedback this year to other members. It's disheartening when you don't really understand why you can't get better.
I said it earlier today. It's the same as going for a job interview.
Yeah.
Not getting the job and not finding why.
Yeah.
So you can't improve and change something or go and get some experience somewhere on what you do.
and part of you can get your friends or whatever to read your application, or my sister was critiquing it and whatever, to try and get the feedback on actually you didn't this time the award's different, and I think they gave you a bit more criteria to follow, which was nice, a bit more like the Accounting Excellence Awards. You had to answer, so I think being able to then make sure, a bit like the old exams, answer the actual question, not just the question you wish they'd asked you.
Yeah, 100%. Well, congratulations with it. And hopefully you can go on, and because it feels like you kind of already got people you're going to be pushing forward for more awards next year. So that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about the community and pushing them forward. So keep doing what you're doing. And that's it. That is another episode of Ask the Accountant. We have cool, or in this case, multiple award-winning friends. If you want to have more episodes like this one, don't forget you're already in the right place to make sure you like, subscribe, all of that jazz. And we have some more cool friends coming your way. So you're going to be looking forward to some nice ones.
Great.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty.
Cheers.